think in general, it's like make the narcissist as small a part of your life as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Fill up your life with so many good things that you are too distracted by those good
Mm-hmm.
things.
Yeah.
So they just don't matter. They just do not matter
Yeah.
in the same way.
Hey everyone, this is Megan. Just a heads up that around 41 minutes in, my mic starts acting up because it decided to choose chaos. The audio gets a little wonky, but please stick with us. It's still a really great episode.
Hello and welcome to How to Be a Terrible Daughter, the podcast where Megan and I hate your parents for you. This is a podcast for anyone who's been called terrible, horrible, ungrateful, selfish, self-centered, just like your Aunt Pat by your family, your parents. This is the place for you. Welcome.
Just like your Aunt Pat sounds very specific. So shout out to whoever that is. I'm Megan. I'm Megan Caper. I am a medical intuitive and a healer, as well as an occupational therapist.
I'm Elizabeth. I am a psychotherapist and a multimedia artist. And
And
we're
we're
cousins.
cousins. We
We are, in
practiced
fact,
that
cousins.
before because we apparently are horrible at being in unison, which is good. I like that we each have the beat of our own drummer.
Absolutely. And what did you tell me? You said perfect is the enemy of good.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, the topic we're going to look at this week is, we've been like championing. Oh my God, I can't say that word. We've been supporting people going no contact and just being like, just do it, just do it. But, we wanted to acknowledge that that's not always easy, that's putting it lightly, or possible. And so we wanted to have an episode where we have some options for people who at the moment can't go no contact or even low contact.
Yeah.
And, what some strategies or tools or ideas are other than emailing us and venting, which we're more than happy to receive your emails and tell you how much we hate your parents for you. But other than that, what are some strategies that we could use?
And to send some love your way, right? And actually, I mean, I think for me, it's to remind you that you actually do deserve some care and attention because
Yes.
they'll never tell you that.
I was going to say, contrary to what your parents are telling you. Yes.
Exactly.
So we're just going to briefly go over some of the reasons why, like, as much as you may want to, you just can't cut your family out of your life right now. And we know you know these because I'm sure you've gone over these over and over again in your head of like how much I would love to cut off my family, but I can't because, right? But we just sort of wanted to go over some of the reasons why it might be challenging. So the first big one is financial reasons. Late stage capitalism is real. And it's sometimes you're intertwined with your family or your partner or somebody because it's just not feasible for you to do
Yeah.
capitalism without them, right?
Yeah. It was the best choice for me for a long time.
Yeah, or you have kids and you need help, mom, like your kids wouldn't have as good of a life, right? If you didn't have those financial ties to your
Oh,
parents, right? So there's all sorts of reasons that financially that it just may not be possible, it may not be possible. Sort of going along that with that are sort of what we call basic Maslow needs reasons. So like food, shelter, like safety, right? Like basic, obviously
yeah.
not emotional safety, but like basic physical safety, right? You know, Sometimes that's important, and a reason that you can't cut your parents
Yeah.
out.
And it's okay to love them and to not be ready. It's really okay. And you have, I mean, also you can lean on us because we will hate your parents for you.
Yeah, we'll do it if you don't feel ready to do that. And then a big one too, this is the one I was in for a decade, I would say, before I cut my mom off, was I didn't know if it was bad enough for that, right? Like all the
Yeah.
messaging I was getting from the outside world is what kind of horrible person stops talking to their mother, Like she can't be that bad. And in my mind, I was like, okay, well, because narcissistic abuse doesn't necessarily fit the stereotype we have of child abuse,
Hmm.
sometimes it's a little bit of a mind fuck, right? Of how bad is it? I think,
Yeah.
the stereotype we have is of someone like physically beating someone, right? But that's not what's happening here, although I would argue it's just as damaging.
Yes.
So it's very hard. I remember having a conversation with someone once and they were like, "Why is your mom so bad?" And I had such a hard time even putting words to it, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
like not only to other people, but to myself sometimes I had a hard time putting words to it when I was trying to figure this all out, right? Why is she so bad? You know?
Yeah. Well, there's an image that came to me, and this was actually relatively recently, but it really helps me, which is that, like, when you're bruised all over, you only need to be touched very lightly to be put into a lot of pain. And
Mm,
so at a certain point, the narcissist doesn't actually have to do anything beyond what is subtle because
mm,
they've already primed you to experience so much pain from even the lightest touch.
yeah,
And it's easy for them to fly under the radar,
yeah,
right? They know
yeah,
exactly how to do that.
yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, if they've already psychologically destroyed you when you were pre-verbal,
Yeah.
and not even aware of
Yeah.
what was going on.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to take much after that. So, yeah, being
Yeah.
confused and not knowing if it's the right time or if it's the right thing to do or if this relationship is that bad, that's a big one. And
Yeah.
then another big one, too, is like, what would happen if you pissed off the narcissist and said, I don't want to talk to you anymore,
Yep.
right? Like,
Yeah.
what narcissistic rage looks like because you've experienced it in the past. You know how adept they are at manipulating people around them to attack you, right? So the flying monkeys, and how much you'll have to deal with not just fallout from the narcissist themselves, but like people coming out of the woodwork to tell you what a horrible person you are and berate you and, re-traumatize
Yes.
you. So,
Yeah.
you know, it takes a lot of fortitude to be mentally ready for that and to know that, you're going to have at least a couple months of fallout like that, if not longer.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sure there's other reasons, but those are sort of the main ones that we thought of. But we wanted to get into talking about like, so what can you do? So if you can't cut the narcissist out of your life, what can you do? And a lot of these are going to sound similar to some of the things we talked about, like in the holiday survival guide and some of the other episodes. But I think they're worth repeating because, yeah, just because they're useful. And also sometimes it's hard to take them in or feel like we deserve these things.
Yeah. And also, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? The holidays
Mhm.
hopefully are a sprint. But, if this is something that you have to deal with every day or, a couple times a week or whatever, these kind of things that you have in place need to be pretty solid for you because you'll need them.
Yeah.
So, the first thing that kind of came to me was to create space and time for yourself where you are safe. And in my mind, that's kind of like create time and space for yourself where the narcissist isn't present
Hmm.
and can't get to you, can't get
Hmm.
to you. So sometimes that's like on your commute, right? You're driving in your car all alone. No one can get to you, right? If you are situations where you turn off your phone, but also I think if you can, like a space where you live,
Yeah.
right? Where it's all yours, you're not going to be disturbed and you're not going to be observed,
Yeah.
right? Your
Yeah.
boundaries are going to be respected. And sometimes that's like a closet,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Or, I mean, I know for me, when I was, in my 20s and sort of trying to figure out where to go to college and where to live, like a major factor in those decisions was how logistically difficult would it be for my mom to get to me? So when I
Yeah.
went to college, obviously I didn't say this out loud to my parents, but one of my big criteria was this has to be somewhere where there's no direct flight from where my mom lives to where I'm going to college. So it had to be at least somewhere where you at least have to have one layover. Because I
Yeah.
knew that would be like a hindrance to her, right?
Yeah.
So, also just to me, that was a huge feeling of safety is to be far enough away that she couldn't get to me easily, right? Just making it so that you have an escape place, right? Again, that could be your car. Cars are great ones. God knows when I got my car when I was 16, I would just go out for drives for
Yep.
hours,
Yeah.
just because there was no way she could find me, This is obviously before cell phone tracking. But yeah.
Yeah. And in addition to that, it can be also really helpful to create a space in your mind, right? So I don't know how much you may know about visualization or self-hypnosis or whatever, but when people talk about going to their safe place, it's a place in your imagination that you design so that it is absolutely perfect for you and your comfort. In my tradition of the craft, it's also called a place of power, which means that when you are in your place of power, you know who you are and you are in touch with your gifts and your strength and you know what's true for you, but you don't really feel like you need to use your strengths or you don't need any protection. You are relaxed, but true to yourself.
Mhm.
And so, however that looks like in your imagination, it can be really helpful to spend time there, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And the next one we wrote down is just, limit your interactions with the narcissist, both in scope and time. So, if you are planning to have lunch with them, make sure that you've already made plans that you have to get to right afterwards, right?
Yes.
Like,
Hmm.
just do whatever you need to do to have the parameters of how much time you spend with them and in what ways be limited by real
Yeah.
things. I mean, actually plan something or lie if you have to, but like, you know,
Hmm.
I would plan real things,
Yeah.
have a friend call you, like, oh,
Yeah.
shoot, my friend is having an emergency. I need to go, just make sure that you know when you go into having this time with them that it's limited, right? Because I think that really helps our nervous systems to know, like, okay, this is only an hour, or this is only like a 20-minute phone call, right? And then my partner or my child is going to conveniently come up to me and be like, I need you, right? So just do whatever you need to do to make the interactions as much in your control as possible in terms of scope and time.
And let them know right away because, well, this is, if you let them know right away and they're in an agreeable state, then they will agree to that. And so they know that you have to get off and whatever. And so the social contract helps you in that way
Yes,
too.
for sure. Definitely like front load them with that information as far in
Yeah.
advance as you can.
Yeah.
And then the next thing we put down is make sure you have relationships outside of that family unit or outside of that narcissistic circle with people that get it, with people who have also experienced this kind of thing in their life because it is so unique and it's so hard to understand. Even just, it's funny. I find that even when I just tell people the title of our podcast, if I'm talking to a group of people,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, what's your podcast called?" And I'm like, "Oh, How to Be a Terrible Daughter." And immediately I can see the expressions on the faces of people who are like, "Oh my God, why would you want to be a terrible daughter? What a terrible name for a podcast." And the people who
I
are like
know.
wide-eyed and are like, "That's the most amazing podcast title I've ever heard in my life." Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. I actually talked to someone this last weekend and she's like, "Oh, how to be a terrible daughter? I already got that down."
yeah, exactly. So it's similar with relationships that you have. Like you need to find people that get it because again, it is so subtle and sneaky and like manipulative that if you don't have a narcissist in your life, I don't think it's really hard to understand or get it, right? You just
It
haven't
is.
experienced
Yeah.
anything even close to like this.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's important is to find, we'll be those people. Again, email us. We're happy to be that group for
Yeah.
you. So that's the next thing.
I think in general, it's like make the narcissist as small a part of your life as you can.
Hmm.
Fill up your life with so many good things that you are too distracted. by those good
Hmm.
things.
Yeah.
So they just don't matter. They just do not matter
Yeah.
in the same way.
I remember a therapist I had at one point who was doing some NLP with me.
Mm.
And I
Oh,
think I
yeah.
mentioned this before. And one of the things she did was have the representation of my mom in my mind become tiny, like this tiny little, like inch tall version of her with a
Mhm.
tiny little squeaky voice that would come out of an inch tall version. Just so that when I was physically with her, like in my mind, she didn't loom so large. In my mind, she was like this tiny little, like, who,
Mhm.
this can't affect me. It's like the size of a cockroach, you know? So, yeah, definitely making that space physically and mentally is really important.
Mhm. Actually, that also reminds me of another tactic. So we did this visualization of, your personal bubble, right? You have your personal bubble. Well, you can actually imagine that your bubble is made out of whatever you need it to be made out of. And I went to a family function once and I made sure that my bubble was made of Kevlar, right? Which is the bulletproof vest
Hmm.
material.
Invented by a woman, by the way. Go ahead.
Thank you. And then on the outside, it was a coating of non-stick coating. So it's like the bullets couldn't get in, and everything also just
Hmm.
slid off the edge too.
Hmm.
And that's how I kept my sanity at
Yeah.
this family function.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. The next thing we have is find a therapist who, we've said this over and over again, but find a therapist who understands this sort of narcissistic abuse and this sort of dynamic. Not all therapists do. So it's really, really important to have someone you can talk to that, gosh, is just going to help you understand while you're in this situation where the crazy is and that it's not with you, you
yes.
know?
Yeah. I think that therapists who have expertise here, there's also two things that are also really helpful, which is strategizing. And then what I like to call the post game show, which is like, we would strategize like my next interaction with my mom. And
Hmm.
then the next session, we would come back and it would just be like, okay, well, what worked? What worked and what didn't work? It's like, okay,
Hmm.
well, this didn't seem to work quite so well. So we need to put this in place differently, or this is the next step that we have to do, or whatever, so that because it's like a big chess game. Because you have to outthink them. You
Hmm.
really need to do that. So, to have a person who has tools and can help work through this with you, who is also not necessarily going to get triggered, you know,
Right.
like your family and your friends might be, it's very useful. That's
Yeah.
really useful.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just thinking as you were saying that, can you imagine having a family where every time you interacted with them, you didn't have to use so much mental load and executive function to avoid getting hurt? Like if that wasn't what family interactions were like.
Is that why you don't feel like family?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, honestly, that's true. I don't have to prepare for my interactions with you at all. In fact, I look forward to them, which is
Yeah.
so bizarre. Like, just like, what? Like, I feel more safe than I do when I'm alone. Like, I don't
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah. 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 Very weird.
Very
Yeah.
weird. Anyway, okay. You mentioned this before, but I think it bears repeating. Is just make sure you have a lot of really good stuff in your life outside of this relationship. Try to
Yeah.
remove as many stressors as you can. Try to outsource as many things that are difficult as you can. I mean, when you're in the middle of this situation, it is absolutely the time to pay for someone else to do the hard things that you don't like doing, right?
Yes.
Or join a mutual aid group, right? And get that kind of support. Or, whatever it is, right? Take classes in things that you love, right? Just find things that nurture you
Yeah.
in the middle of this because you're not getting nurturing from your parents. So you need to find it in other places.
And this is a burden. I mean, let's be clear about it. This isn't a relationship as much as it is a burden.
Hmm.
And you need to make sure that there's room on your plate for that. And that means saying no to probably other ways that you want to help people or would make you feel like a good person. You need to be really clear that, like, you are taking on your share of the good work in the world. And if you think about that, that's actually a really good question to ask yourself, which is, would I rather be working in a soup kitchen than, taking my mom's call? Maybe, you know,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
It's also, as we're saying this, I feel like narcissists do such a good job at completely dismantling your sense of self that going out, even figuring out what is it that would make me feel good? What is it that would make
mhm,
me feel nurtured? Like in and of
yeah,
itself is a good practice because like I know, like there's parts of me that I'm unclear who I am. I don't have a sense of who I am because I was never given the opportunity to find that out as a kid. It's all been as an adult, right?
mhm,
So do
yeah,
I like going to the spa? I don't know. I mean, I know that's something that people say they like. Do I like it? Like, I don't know. And I know that must
yeah,
sound funny to some people. Like, how could you not know whether you like that or not? But when your whole life has been dictated to you by another person,
yep,
you lose the ability for that kind of discernment of what it is you even enjoy, you know?
yeah, yeah,
So, okay. So this one I feel like is pretty self-explanatory, but definitely important to remind yourself. And God knows I fell off this wagon many, many times, which
yep,
is don't go to them for advice or help or comfort. Don't do that.
mm-mm,
No,
mm-mm,
they're not the people. They're not going to help you. They're only going to make it worse. They're
yeah,
really only going to make it worse. So, yeah, have other people in your life that you can go to for these kinds of things. But don't make the mistake of thinking, like, maybe this time, if I go to them, they'll actually be empathetic, or this will help them understand me or my situation. It won't.
no,
It won't. Just don't. Just don't do it. Find other people to do that with.
yeah,
And in the same vein, don't give them any personal info. Don't tell them what your schedule is. Don't tell them the names of all your friends. You
yeah,
know, don't tell them what you like or dislike because they'll try to take it away. Just gray rock. Give that it is a need to, you are a classified document and it is a need to know basis only.
I went to teacher training for my meditation practice in 2013.
Hmm.
And I think that I had not, and I learned in like 98, but I don't think I told my mom until like 2010 or something like that. So yeah.
There were
Yeah.
things about myself that I never told my mom, and she's dead now, and so she'll never know. Like, I literally, there are secrets I kept my entire life
Yeah.
that I didn't tell her. I don't think I ever came out to her. She didn't need to know that.
No,
No,
she wouldn't have responded well either.
no. I hid my entire cancer treatment from her.
Yeah.
Like, she didn't need to know that. Just gonna make it worse, you know? So, like,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to have a lot of things that are just for yourself and for the people that you know are going to treat you well,
Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay, we wanted to talk about how to steer the conversation. So, we talked about limiting time, right? So, like, make sure you only, if it's lunch, that you have it out, that you have something planned for right after, and that you're going to go to that. But even within the time you're spending with them, make sure you have a few ways to stay in control of the conversation and the topics and what you're talking about and how in depth you get with that. So you said, I love this. You said, think of them like a work colleague, have it be light and polite, right? So we're going to talk about the weather
Mhm.
or
Local sports team.
that local sports team or the Hallmark Christmas movie that we watched or whatever, right? Like very light,
Yes.
very light, very much like someone who you don't feel close to at all because you shouldn't feel close to them. Have certain topics ready. So again, that could be the sports ball, that could be like things that you know they are interested in, but that there is not any true controversy around, right? And then one of my favorites that I did is I would have a phrase that I would practice, like literally in front of the mirror by myself before I would go. that was just something like, I'm not really interested in talking about that. Or I'm done talking about that. Or I'm going to change the subject now. Or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And you just keep repeating it. You will sound like you've lost your mind at a certain point when you keep repeating it, but that's okay, right? So she'd be like, I really need to talk to you about your poor decision about whatever. And I'd be like, yeah, that's not a topic that I really want to talk about right now. But we have to talk about it because blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's not a topic I'm really interested in talking about right now. But blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's not a topic I'm really interested in talking about right now, right? You just keep repeating it. And finally, eventually they'll say something like, you're so unreasonable. You won't even talk about this with me. And you go, oh, yeah, exactly. You got it. I don't want to talk about this. I am being unreasonable and I don't want to talk about this. And then eventually they do back off, while blaming you for being unreasonable or whatever. But yeah, they will back down if you literally just keep repeating the same phrase over and over again. Don't switch up the phrases because if you do, they'll find something to latch onto. But a minute ago, you said blah, blah, blah. Nope. You just keep saying the same thing over and over and over again until they give up.
Broken record, broken record.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing that I noticed about what you said was that because you're repeating yourself, you feel like you're crazy. But the truth is that if someone keeps setting a limit with you and you just keep not even acknowledging that they set the limit, who's the crazy one?
Right. That's why I
I
said
mean,
you're going to sound crazy. You're
I
not.
know. No, I know. I
But
know.
yeah,
I
no, but
know.
I get
Yeah.
your point entirely. Like it's,
If they listened, you'd only have to say it once.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, with anyone else that I know of, I would maybe have to say it at the most 3 times. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm imagining if someone was like, let's say someone was really, really concerned about some incredibly self-destructive behavior, right? Let's say I was like, had an alcohol problem or something, right? And somebody was trying to
Yes.
talk to me about it. And I said, I don't want to talk about that with you, but I'm really
Right.
worried about you. And I don't want to talk about that with you.
Right.
But I don't want to talk about that with you. And I think after about the third time, a reasonable, rational person will go, okay, well, I'm here when you're ready, you know?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
a narcissist. It will take,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how long it'll take, more times than you can count. So yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. It's about them not listening to you, not respecting you, not seeing you as a person who's allowed to make their own decisions. You mentioned this before, but like making sure that you're taking care of yourself physically as best you can, like eating nutritious food that you like, getting movement, whatever that means. That can be walking in nature and sitting on a stump for an hour, hugging a tree. It can be putting on headphones and dancing in your room. It can be like going to the gym and getting a good workout, like whatever that means. Just making sure that you're in your body, making sure you get enough sleep if you can, that kind of thing is really, really important because this type of abuse really does suck your life force out of you. It is exhausting. You're always on guard. That in and of itself is exhausting. And then you're constantly being attacked. And that is extra exhausting, you
Yeah.
know? So just really making sure that you are caring for yourself as though you've come out of battle every time that you have an interaction with them. What would someone who
Yeah.
just returned from battle need? They would need
Yeah.
rest, they would need food, they would need quiet, and just
Yeah.
do that for yourself because you absolutely, absolutely deserve it.
You always deserve to give yourself more than you give them. Always.
Ooh, say that
Always.
again.
You always deserve to give more to yourself than you give to them because they won't do it for you and they won't do it for themselves. They make everybody else take care of them. That's not fair or okay or good in any way. So anything that you give, make sure that you already have plenty. And also, this is something that just got me messed up over and over and over again, which is I would have like gone away and like, had I had filled myself up, right? I'd spent time away from my parents or whatever, and I would feel really great. For a certain amount of time, I would feel like I could pretty much handle anything
Hmm.
that my mom threw at me. But then over time, if I wasn't able to maintain a really robust self-care practice, it would be like leaky tire syndrome, right? It would just be like all of a sudden, this is kind of annoying me a little bit. But it's like, you know what? I can handle
Mm,
it. I can handle it. I can handle it. I was able to handle it 2 weeks ago, right?
yeah.
And then I would just be slowly and surely worn down. And the thing that's important to know is that for me, because all of my self care I learned later on in my life,
Hmm.
when I get stressed out, those are the tools that I lose. So the more stressed
Mm,
out I get, the less capable I am of even practicing those things that I know, I intellectually know are good for me.
yeah.
And so to really, really be careful and gentle
I
and
was just
loving
gonna
with
say,
yourself.
and make sure, speaking from experience as a me, make sure that when you realize that you haven't been using those tools, you are so kind to yourself. Don't be like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I haven't meditated for 3 days and that's why I'm so stressed and da 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 da. No, 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 no. It's like, oh, wow, okay. I'm so glad that I recognized that I'm getting stressed out and that I caught it at this point in the cycle. And I'm really, really excited to be able to figure out how I can take care of myself today to get myself on a better track or in a better place. Right. So just at whatever point you realize that you're burnt out, that you're stressed, that you're not handling things well, don't beat yourself up. It's like, oh, okay, thank you. Thank you, brain, for at this point reminding me, letting me know.
Yeah.
Um, so
I know for me, part of that compassion comes from this realization that the part of myself that would say, you know what, just no, just don't stay up any later. You are tired. Go to bed now. I know you want to keep going and doom scrolling or whatever, but
yeah,
no, you should go to bed, honey. That is the voice of a good parent.
yeah,
And of course, I would have a hard time telling myself that
right,
because I didn't get it.
right. Yep.
So it takes an extra effort.
When you a few years ago shared with me for the first time those good parent messages,
Oh my
that
God.
was absolutely life-changing. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't have the ability to like come up with those phrases because I never
Yep.
got it. I didn't even know what
Yes.
to say. Like, I didn't know the words to say, you know? Even just having, it's like having a script, you know?
Yes.
And again, I feel like that's something that if you got that as a kid, how could you even understand what it's like to not know what those phrases, like what words to string together to
Yeah.
feel loved or cared for? Like what that would even sound like, you
Yeah.
know? So, yeah, I think that that's such a huge thing is to, just the way that you talk to yourself, just being so, like, such a kind, loving, protective parent, safe, protective,
Yeah.
loving, kind parent, you know?
Yeah.
So,
And sometimes the only way you would know would be by, I don't know, like your favorite movie or a TV show that you
mhm.
once watched or a book. You may not have any like real life example, and that's okay.
Yeah,
That's okay, but you build on that.
you
You
build
build
on
on
that.
that.
I still
Yeah.
sometimes, when I do my visualizations, will go into like a sitcom family from a show when I was a kid,
Ooh,
and I'll just be their
sounds
kid,
great.
for a
Oh,
while.
that's great.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Okay, let's switch gears. It is time for the mini crazy mom off, where we each tell stories of some crazy shit that our moms did to us at some point in the
My
past.
goodness. Oh, wow.
Never-ending supply of crazy
Yeah,
shit.
totally. I have a
Uh,
story.
Go ahead. Yeah.
It's the one that it just came up. So My mom got really, really mad one year for Hanukkah because she said that she bought my grandmother, her mother-in-law, this amazing gift and that my grandmother was not grateful enough.
Mm.
And the
Nobody
gift
was
that
ever
my mother,
grateful enough for your mom, but go
no,
ahead.
no one was ever grateful. So, so my mother, without any consultation with anyone, went and got my grandmother an exercise bike.
Okay.
That year, my grandmother had been diagnosed with diabetes and she was
Okay.
overweight.
Yeah.
And my mother thought that she was helping.
Oh God.
And she hated my grandmother. They
Right.
hated each other.
They hated each other.
They hated each other.
Hate.
And it was just like, and I was like
That is
11,
so
12.
passive aggressively shaming.
I
Like,
know.
it's so bad. It's
Yeah.
so bad. Like, that is so. Oh, and I know that your mom, in her mind, genuinely did think she was helping. Like,
Oh,
that's the
sure.
fucked up part,
Oh,
is that
yeah.
she had no idea what a complete fucking cunt she was being.
Yeah. Yeah. She would never admit it. Absolutely.
No.
Absolutely. I mean, and she would just, say that that's ridiculous. Why would anyone think that that's insulting?
Right. I'm just trying to
I'm just
help.
she wants to get healthier and I'm just helping her. And then of course my mom would like every time we'd come home from a family dinner and my grandmother, would have dessert, she would just be like, "Oh,
Oh,
your
God.
grandmother is choosing to, shoot insulin and eat dessert and she won't even get on the bike that I got her." It's like,
Oh, my God.
"Okay.
Oh, my God.
Okay." Yeah.
Which is, I have to say, especially ironic because your grandmother, I'm sure, was like, older at that time. And let's take a look at how your mom dealt with her own failing health as she got older, which is
Yes.
complete denial and refusal to
Yes.
see a doctor for years until
For
she keeled over.
years.
Like that.
Absolutely.
Yes. So,
Literally. Although I'm pretty grateful that she did that. I would love more than anything to have a mom that I loved. Or no, 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 no. I did love her. I totally loved her. She didn't love
yeah,
me.
right.
She was a terrible
Yeah.
person, but I would have loved to have a mom
You would have loved to have a mom
to
where that was
miss.
reciprocated in a way that was fulfilling and helpful. Yes.
Yeah. You know? Anyway,
Yeah. Oh my
your
God. That's just
grandmother's so ungrateful. I guess, yeah.
right. Yes. Oh my God. That's just uh just so selfish. Just so
Just,
selfish. I remember your mom when your grandmother died, like the glee that
oh,
she expressed, like knowing your mom and for decades I was still surprised at how and like right in front of your dad
oh yeah.
and like right after his mom had just died,
Oh yeah.
like just going off on her, going off on this. I mean, we're doing the same thing, we're going off on dead women, but like like
Okay. We're not doing it to the people who love them,
that's true.
first of all. And
Yes.
second of all, I mean, we had mixed feelings when our moms died.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
because we're actual people, you know? My mom didn't have mixed feelings. She was
Yeah.
thrilled. Thrilled.
Yeah. Yeah, there were no mixed feelings at all and no thought whatsoever to like what your dad, who is standing literally right next to her. I mean, we were like at Shiva, right? Like, I mean, it was like literally right after she died, within
Yeah.
days. Your
Oh,
dad's
yeah.
standing right next to her, and your mom is just like, she was a horrible person who never did anything good in the world, and da 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 da. And I'm looking at your poor dad who just lost his mom, who probably had mixed feelings about her too, but still, like, come on. No, you don't say that in front of the person whose parent just died, regardless of what their relationship was. Even you and me, when our moms died, neither of us immediately jumped to what a horrible person. Like, I think we both held space for each other to have those mixed feelings, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Oh my God, your mom's terrible. I'm so glad she's not here to do that anymore.
Can I add one more lagniappe to that?
Yeah.
So, so my dad would be shell shocked, right? My mom would have, and then she would get mad at him and say that and accuse him of not having any feelings. Where
Oh,
is the
that's
room for his
rich.
feelings?
My mom
Where?
would do similar, but the line was clearly you're not on my side.
Okay.
That's always what it was.
You know what? I will never be on your mom's side. Officially, officially.
Wow. Okay, my crazy mom off was actually inspired by something that you very kindly did for me that caused me to, not because of anything you did, but caused me to have a PTSD flashback. So, yeah. Well, I should give a little backstory to this, which is also very exciting, which is that we have merch for this podcast.
We do.
Elizabeth has been designing some unbelievably amazing graphics and
Aw.
logos and for t-shirts and tote bags and blankets and, sweatshirts and whatnot. So very soon, if you are interested, we will have merch. But I was telling her a particular story where in that story I got called an ungrateful princess for having effects of chemotherapy, by the way, was why I was an ungrateful princess, is because I didn't have a ton of energy because I was in the middle of chemotherapy. And so I was an ungrateful princess.
Yeah.
So I was telling her the story, and you made the most amazing t-shirt for me that is this like rainbow unicorn. And on the top it says ungrateful, and underneath it says princess around the unicorn. It is just it warmed the very depths of the cockles of my heart. Yeah, you had it made and you sent it to me. So I got the shirt. I loved the shirt. I was wearing the shirt and I was making dinner. It was the first day I got the shirt. It was the first time I was wearing the shirt and I was making dinner. And I realized after I made dinner and I sat down and I was eating it that a little bit of oil had splattered on the shirt, as happens when you're cooking, right? So my immediate reaction was panic. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Why am I panicking? And I realized it was because when I was little, if my mom got me anything, especially something I really, really wanted that was maybe like a little expensive or like special in some way, that if I got a stain on it or even just didn't take care of it to her standards, like it showed a little wear and tear after I wore it, she would immediately tell me that I was clearly unable to take care of nice things. And so therefore didn't deserve nice things. And would not only take that item away from me, but would also go through my closet or go through my toys or go through whatever it was that I had ruined. I'm putting that in quotes, which is usually like getting a little stain on it or something, right? And take my favorites away and say, well, you're clearly not responsible enough to have these things. And once you mature and can prove to me that you're responsible enough to take care of your things, maybe I'll give them back to you. With clothing, a lot of the time she would take it and she would start wearing it, which was like,
It's fucked up. My God.
and with toys, I don't know where they went.
Ugh.
I don't remember if I got them back or not. I don't think I did. I think some of them just went away. I think sometimes she would give them to, oh yeah, I'm remembering now. She would give them to like household workers, like the gardener or the cleaning lady or whatever for their kids. Like,
Jeez.
I didn't deserve them. And so she's going to give them to someone who's actually grateful for them and appreciated them. But it was always about something that was like, a kid mistake. Like,
Yeah.
I got some dirt on something or,
Yeah.
I remember once I had a brand new pair of shoes and I like tripped and I scuffed the front part, like the rubber. So there was like a little black mark on it because I tripped. And that was like, the shoes got taken away immediately. So yeah, I had this moment of like, oh my, I thought you were going to be, I mean, obviously this was not my like adult self, but my child part of me thought you were going to be so furious at me that I'd ruined this thing that you just got me. Obviously, I know.
Yes.
That was the PTSD flashback part, right? I was immediately back there. But I would like you to know that I am an adult. And so do you know what I did? I put stain remover on it and I put it through the wash and it was fine. It was fine. It's okay. I can get stains
That's
on
great.
and it's all fine.
That's good. I'm so glad. Terrible, terrible people.
Yeah, really terrible people. Okay, so give me a tool of how you made it through this week.
Okay. I'm going to tell you 2 tools. One is fancy and one is not fancy. So it's been a tough news week. And so I was just like not feeling great. I was not feeling great. And my inner child was not feeling great. And so I was driving my kid to school and they were listening to their favorite music and they were getting pumped up and it was the beginning of the week and it was really great. And I was like, that's really awesome for them. And knowing that they needed it, they needed to like be filled with themselves and joy before going into a week of school. And I was feeling tired. And so I was like, So I started doing some breathing exercises to regulate some of my energy. So I did charging breaths that get oxygen into the system and then calming breaths, which spread the oxygen through the body. So that helps wake up or whatever. We can provide links to that, which is really great. So there's a whole breathing segment of the theoretical orientation of my psychotherapy practice. So that was really great. It was really nice to kind of pick that up. Then the other thing was on the way back home, I realized that like, I really wanted to like have songs, that my inner child would like. And so I pulled up Sesame Street songs and I know. There's a bunch of songs that are like really great. Like there's Will I Am. He's got, I'm going to keep my head up high. I'm going to be the best me I can be. I'll be getting stronger. There's like great ones about emotions and how healthy they are. And there's actually like a breathing song with Common. So there's just all of these
belly breathing. I know that one.
Belly breathing.
As an OT, I've used it with my kids. Yeah.
Yeah. And I used to sing these songs to my kid when they were a baby. And I sang them to myself. And it was the best. It was so good. I really needed it.
Really good. That's really good.
Yeah.
Mine is something similar, actually, which is I have this playlist of songs that are like the songs that make me dance and make me really happy and, just are like songs that, are good mood songs. But I was feeling like I had anger to get out. Again, news cycle. And they're not songs that are like angry songs at all. In fact, they're very like upbeat, poppy, happy songs. So I put on a bunch of like angry Lilith Fair women alt rock from the 90s from when I was younger and just put on headphones. And I, of course, still know all of the lyrics because they're in there permanently.
Yeah.
And I just danced around my apartment, rage singing, screaming.
Good. Good.
So like PJ Harvey and Hole and like Rage Against the Machine. And like,
yes.
And it was really cathartic because for me anyway, I think the emotion I have, like one of the emotions I still have the hardest time connecting to is anger. And it's almost like I need a vehicle. And then once the anger starts to come out, it'll flow. But I am still scared to show anger because that was physically dangerous for me to show as a kid. I mean, there could have been some like actual life-threatening retribution if I express anger.
Yeah.
So it's still one that's hard for me. And so, yeah, having angry music for me to dance around to was really good. Was really, really good. So I felt so much better afterwards. So I love that we both had music, but yours was like, I'm going to connect with my toddler. And mine was like, I'm going to connect with my like teenager.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But I think it's good because you do need to connect with all those parts of yourself and all those ages and, you know?
Yeah. What is it? We are every age we've ever been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening again. We appreciate all of you. We always want to hear from you. So if you want to connect with us, you can send us a message on Instagram. We're at Terrible Daughter Pod. If you want to email us, we are the letter H, the number 2, the letter B, terrible@gmail.com. That's H2B terrible@gmail.com. And yeah, we just love to hear your stories of your terrible mom or father or whoever. We'd love to hear your tools that you use because God knows we got to lean on each other and learn from each other.
Great idea.
Yeah. And we just want you to know if you are still in relationship with your narcissistic parent and they tell you that you are an ungrateful princess or terrible or horrible and somehow make you the villain in their story, that you have the option to just be like, yes, I am the villain. So it is.
Villain era.
Thank you for listening. We'd be so grateful if you'd follow or subscribe and rate and review our new podcast on your favorite podcast app.
Make sure to share it with friends, family, or anyone that you think may benefit from this content.
And as a final reminder, you are not the crazy one.